Please welcome Paul Hardin to the stage. Paul is a cybersecurity professional and avid gamer with extensive experience in quality assurance and IT. Pulling from his previous background in QA and video game production, Paul brings a unique perspective to the field of cybersecurity, leveraging methodologies from diverse domains to tackle complex security challenges. Please welcome Paul.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. My talk will be sorry about that. All right. Hey, even better. So today I want to talk about video games, quality assurance, and business logic. A little bit about me. My name is Paul Hardin. I am a senior application security consultant. Currently with Direct Defense. All things on the slide are my own, not new to the company. Have to do that. So, a little bit about my background. So I started in quality assurance, and you guessed it, in video games. So I was the stereotypical quality assurance game tester. It was kind of my first job out of college. It was honestly fantastic. I did that for about 5 or so years before moving into quality assurance for web applications. And then shifting into security. I've been doing that for about 5 years now, with a focus on web applications also as well. So yeah. What are we going to be talking about here? I had this idea quite a while ago. I play a lot of video games, in case anybody didn't guess that. And I was thinking, okay, well, what about video games? I'm playing these games. I've been doing this for decades. How is that going to influence what I do for quality assurance? And then when I switched over into application security, kind of where that worked as well. So what I kind of want to talk about is how you can take your own experiences, just the things that you're doing unconsciously, subconsciously, while you're playing video games, talk a little bit about quality assurance processes and practices, and how you can hopefully build some better business logic test cases out of that. I do have to do the what is everything. In case you don't know what a video game is, just in case, really, really basic. They are interactive electronic games. That is the lowest I could make the explanation. You're probably familiar with playing them, you've probably seen them, everything from console games, computer games, mobile games, web games. If you were on Facebook a decade ago and you were playing Farmville with, everybody else on Facebook. I might have had my hand in that. I did work at Zynga for a little bit, so sorry about that. But that is a video game. This is a huge industry, right? The last statistic that I saw, I was actually reading this yesterday or the day before, is that their budget blows Hollywood out of the water. So this is a huge industry. Quality assurance. I have to use yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, it's about video game testers. Quality assurance. So if you're not familiar with quality assurance, It's a little different in software. There's quality assurance everywhere. There's quality assurance in your food production. There's quality assurance in manufacturing. If you have ever seen the little marks on your printer, there's a little RGB. That's for quality assurance. So you can make sure things are printing. Software quality assurance. Making sure that the product is meeting specifications and preventing the defects from reaching the end users. And then business logic test cases. Set of rules that determine how the application operates. So, as an application security tester, what I do for any application that I'm testing, we are working on, between the dynamic testing, we have our manual tests. We are working on, how is the application doing what it's supposed to be doing. So business logic test cases are a big part of that. Okay, I've defined things. What are we doing? So my thought process for this is our first example. What do I do when I play a video game? One of my favorite types of video games are action-adventure, usually third person, usually single player. That's what I prefer to play. The first time I load into a level, I turn around. How many people, when you turn around on a level, there's a chest behind you, there's another route, there's any other number of things behind you. It's not what you're supposed to do. The camera's pointing forward. There's obviously a path forward. You're supposed to go forward. The first thing you're doing is turning around. That's just kind of, I never even thought about that. I just automatically do it. You spin the stick, you turn around, you see what's behind you. So what that ends up being, as we go on to the second bit for testing, we also want to go backwards, right? So if I'm doing quality assurance, when I was doing quality assurance, you have what is called a happy path and the unhappy path. The happy path is the developer said, okay, so you're on my e-commerce website. I would like you to go to the product page and then select a quantity of items, and then you go to the checkout and you put in your payment information and you put in your address and you check out and you bought your thing, and that's great. Well, so what's the unhappy path there? The unhappy path is maybe I forgot something in my cart. Maybe I changed my mind. Maybe I forgot to look for coupons and I delete the item. I need to go add another item. I've moved since the last time I bought something from this website, so now I have to change my address. All of these are edge cases and not necessarily just the happy path. So that's what I would do for QA. If I'm writing a business logic test case while I'm testing a web application, it's going to be very similar to that. It's going to be, okay, I'm doing what you told me to do, what you're expecting me to do, this happy path. Now, what else can I do? So, I'm playing a video game. I've turned around. Hey, you know what? That brick wall is a different color pixel than the rest of the brick wall. So, I'm going to try to do something destructive. So if I'm writing a business logic test case, it is going to be, I have followed the happy path and I have followed an unhappy path with a couple of examples. Some of the things off the top of my head, removing all the items, seeing what happens. If your URL is going from the cart to payment to shipping, what happens if I skip to shipping? Can I skip to shipping? Can I force the URL to do that? And honestly, this is what started the whole talk, was turning around. Another fun example I had. So if you do pay attention to video games, you've probably heard of a speed run. A speed run is how fast can we finish the game. There's different rules, are you doing it aided, unaided, are you using tools, different things like that. I have a little brother, he also likes video games, and he sent me a speed run for a video game called Doom Eternal, where somebody had mapped the jump button, which normally is, say, the space key by default, and you can press it, and you can press it pretty fast. They mapped it to the scroll wheel of their mouse, so they had near infinite jump. What that allowed them to do was break through the boundaries of the game, fly over the whole map, just like skip straight to the end, you just jump on various artifacts and you just skip the whole thing. That's out of video games. What happens when we do that for our application testing? If anybody here uses BERT, if you're using BERT Professional, if you're familiar with the repeater tool, one of the things that they added is called Turbo Repeater. If you haven't played with that, go play with that. They have a lab, Portswater has a lab for Turbo Repeater. Basically what it is doing, BERT is a proxy, so you can capture in their lab a discount code for your cart. And what happens if you send that same discount code over and over and over? You can group your requests and send them all at the same time. I think the spoilers for the lab, you get it down to like $100 item down to like $2, because it's exploiting race conditions. So when you're doing QA, I did this. I worked on a couple multiplayer games. We checked for things like boundaries. We're checking for collision errors. You run around the map, you walk around the map, you walk into everything, you see if they forgot something. One of the things that a lot of testers do is you can crouch. That changes the size of your hitbox. You jump, and you jump, you crouch, you jump backwards. And the amount of things where I've seen people exit the map that way is wild. So when you're writing your business logic, thinking about what happens if we are just really playing with those boundaries. We're using Turbo Repeater, we're trying to invoke a race condition, we're trying to break through. Another lesson out of video game, side quests. I don't know who plays RPGs. If you've played a role-playing game, there are a lot of side quests. You might have a main story, and then you run into the tavern, and they're like, hey, I know you're trying to save the world and do all this stuff, but I need 3 chickens. So if you can grab me 3 chickens, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll give you my grandfather's knife. And then you get the grandfather's knife, and it's a map, and you go do something else, and you do something else. Well, okay, so what are we doing for quality assurance? What are we doing for our business logic test cases? Do you know everything that's in scope? Are you a completionist? Are you making sure that everything has been clicked on? If you're writing your business test case, your business logic, are you making sure that you've checked every page, that you've checked the contact page? I ran across an issue that had a contact form. It was for contact our lawyer if you think that there's been some sort of breach. And it had unrestricted file uploads. I could send anything to their law team. I don't know what kind of protections they had on the back end. I never got to see that. I never got to see the full impact. But it was embedded in the about, in the contact. It wasn't necessarily, I never saw it on the sitemap specifically, But it was on their about page, like, hey, do you need to contact our lawyers? And it brought you to a whole separate contact page. So making sure that you've done all the side quests, that you've checked all the functionality. I think one of my biggest things that I would like actually people to take away from this is play with your application. And I did put play in quotations. What we do is serious business sometimes. I've touched a lot of things that I really hope have no issues. I use a lot of applications on the daily that I hope have no issues. But you need to explore your application. You need to play with it. You can't just trust that the last guy got everything, that the application hasn't changed. You need to play with it. You need to understand your application. Remember your happy paths. Remember your unhappy paths. Those, like I gave the example of checkout and cart. So what else is there in your application? Is there login? Is there signing in? Any other number of things that you want to make sure that you're checking how people expect you to go and how to break that. Thinking of the edge cases, when I play a video game, I was trying to think of examples the other day, and I was thinking of Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's an older game. But there were multiple places in that game where you could destroy seemingly innocuous walls and get bonus area. It was great. So what are your edge cases? What are your business logic edge cases? If you are adding things to cart, do they have a little slider? Do they have something to increment the number? Can you add half of an item? Can you add a symbol? What happens when you add these things? How does the application deal with that? Edge cases are really important in quality assurance, and they're where you're going to find most of your issues when you're doing your business logic and application testing. If you can, read the patch notes. They're obviously not always available for the application that you're testing, but one of the fun things, if you are looking at video game patch notes, if you've ever seen, removed the random coconut out of level 4, who knows what they could have replaced that with. I've seen some great patch notes. I would definitely recommend looking up some. They can be funny. They can be very serious as well. But every time somebody changed something, they could have very well introduced a new issue. I've worked in quality assurance long enough that every time anything changes, there's a very real possibility that something else went wrong. Look behind, go backwards. There are many instances in quality assurance in video games where you go backwards. You have got a new item and now you're going to go backwards and check something else. For your business logic test cases, you want to make sure that if you add something to your cart, you can add it from the checkout, that you can add it from the product page itself. I did touch on clearing the map and just clicking all those links. Use your TeamSpeak. If you guys have ever played any MMOs, any first-person shooters, you've probably seen TeamSpeak. It's talking to your team. It's making sure that if you are doing something, that you're communicating it to the rest of your team, right? If I am going to, in a video game, I'm going to go take the base. You tell your team that. If you're doing application security testing, you might want to tell the analyst that you're about to, run a scan that is going to send a whole bunch of noise to the logs. Do you have a way to communicate that with your team? Button mashing. I did mention I have a little brother. If you have ever tried to play a fighting game where you know what the combos are and you're playing against somebody who just is hitting all the buttons, it's actually wild how often they'll win. So how are we doing that in quality assurance? How are we doing that in business logics? You were throwing everything out there. We have our fuzzers, we have repeaters, we have all of these things. Send everything out there. Send your alphanumeric characters, send your symbols, send your null bytes, send everything that you can within scope, obviously. Which kind of goes into just because it says you can't try it anyway. If you've ever repeated a video game that you've played before and they haven't told you that you can jump yet, but you know what the jump button is, you might jump over something. I had an instance with a business logic test case when I was doing QA that I've used multiple times now in business logic, where this was a product that is sold in eaches. It could only be sold in eaches. You could only press 1, 2, you could only increment it in whole numbers. However, if you copied 0.5, well, you could add that to the cart. Luckily, we caught it before it went to production, so I have no idea what they would have done when it got to shipping. And they were like, so do we just cut this in half? Do we what? But it only charged half the price for as far as I would with it. So try it. Just because somebody says you can't, you do it anyway. And then there is no platinum trophy. If you're a completionist, you just have to realize also, we are doing our best effort. This is for quality assurance, this is for penetration testing, this is for web app testing, this is for your business logic test cases. You might miss something. You want it documented so that you can say what you did do. If you did miss something, you might want to have a reason. If they're like, hey, how did you miss this? You say, well, I tested this and this and this around it. In video games, I've done testing where I've literally had to test the platinum trophy, which was like, do 1,000 multiplayer matches. And we were getting a new build every other day. There was not physically enough time. I got it down to having 8 controllers laid out in front of me, entering a match, making everybody else quit. I won the match with the one controller I didn't quit. I never got that trophy. We did ship without, with the best effort, because it was literally physically impossible for me to do that. You have to know your application. I spend, if I have a week or 2 weeks, if I have the time, I devote a good half a day to going through the application so that I know exactly what this application is doing. I may not know all of the edge cases and everything, but I know what the application is trying to do before I start writing my business logic test cases. There's some general things. If you have login, you know there's login, you can write your, can I do SQL injection, get through login? Can I bypass your login in any way? You know that you're going to have to test that, but every application is different. I'm a consultant, so I see a new application every engagement. When I was QA, I was on a project from really, really early pre-viz to the shipped and post-support. I knew that application. I had gotten hate mail through chat because we were testing the production environment in a multiplayer game. And I had been playing the game for 60, 80 hours a week for months before it was released. Obviously, I was winning. I knew the game. I knew the game inside and out. But if you don't know it, play with it. Make sure that you can get that experience. I did want to give some extra resources. So the International Software Testing Qualifications Board does certification. If you are not familiar with quality assurance, if you are a tester, especially if you're doing application testing, I've always called application testing security plus plus, or QA plus plus, sorry. Because when I moved over, I was like, well, these are a lot of the same things I'm doing. I'm checking your inputs. I'm making sure that everything works the way it's supposed to work. But now I'm getting an error. Instead of saying, hey, there's an error, I'm saying, okay, there's an error, and it says this, and now I can then potentially exploit it further. If you have not checked out PortSwigger's Web Security Academy, I am a huge fan. It's free. They require an email sign up if you want to keep track of your stuff. But there's so much information, and they do have a section on logic flaws, as well as OWASP. If you're not familiar with OWASP, enter in application security, especially web application security, check it out. But they do have also some sections on business logic testing and data validation. I am very close to time, but that is my game over slide. So, feel free to reach out. If you see me around, come say hi. I like talking about this stuff. I like talking about security. I like talking about video games. I like talking about QA. I like talking about my dog. No, she is not a password. She has never been a password, so you don't have to try that. This is Mochi. Yes, this is a real billboard. I had a billboard for my dog. And it was great. You can ask me about it. It was super fun. But I wanted to leave space for questions, if we have any. So, thank you.
As you hit on two specific topics that generally aren't covered by security scanners like Burp Suite or OWASP Go or whatever your pick your flavor, can you talk to me about how you see the industry today maybe leaning on those scanners as results? Oftentimes with new or inexperienced pen testers or bug bounty hunters, they'll just send in a Burp report.
Sure. So if I understood the question correctly, you're saying you've seen, Burp or OWASP app or any other of these scanners, and the scanner runs and somebody hands you a report and you're like, hey, this is trash. This isn't super awesome. Yeah, so I was very lucky. When I was transitioning, I was already in a consulting role doing QA. We were starting up at practice. We brought somebody in who was senior. They told us not to do that. So for those of you who haven't played with Burp or OWASP, it will generate an automatic report. If you set it that way, there's always settings for software. There's so many false positives. I use Burp pretty much daily in my professional life, and I'd say maybe 2 or 3 times. So if you see something in your result, go check it. It's not that it's always a false positive, but you do have to verify everything. And I hope that answered your question. Yeah, just verify it. Don't do the raw report. That's not a report. That's a scan output. If you have never watched there's a YouTube hack for show, report for dough, go watch that. It talks about hacking is secondary to the report. The report is what is being paid for. That is how you are making it run. Any other questions? Well, nobody had questions about my dog, so I'm a little hurt. But thank you everybody for listening, and it's still not my password. And thank you.
Thank you.